The Lord today and look into His Word once again. We appreciate your prayers for us as we get into His Word. Turn to the book of Psalm, if you would, in chapter 31. Psalm 31. As the Lord leads, what we'd like to look at this afternoon is not really a continuation of this morning's, but one that I believe will go hand in hand with it as we think about those precious promises that we studied and talked about this morning. What I want to look at this afternoon is in verses 14 and 15 of Psalm 31. David writes, it says, "But I trusted in thee, O Lord. I said, Thou art my God. My times are in thy hand. Deliver me from the hand of mine enemies, and from them that persecute me." And in these two verses here, the psalmist David points out a few things. And we spoke this morning about the promise of the Holy Spirit dwelling with us and being with us, and that we are here but for a pilgrimage. And what we want to look at this afternoon, and we'll look at an account in the Old Testament as well on Asa, but our times are in the hands of the Lord. My time. See, David, in these two verses here, he makes this very personal. He points out things that, as a child of God, we have this personal relationship too. But he says, Thou art my God. He says, My times are in thy hand. Deliver me from the hand of mine enemies and from them that persecute me. So it's a very personal passage that David writes. But his trust is in God. Thou is God. God shall deliver. So we see that David points out, I trusted in thee, O Lord. I said, Thou art my God. That David opens up with that he trusted in the Lord. That the Lord is the source of his faith and trust. The sovereign God, the Holy One is He. That personal relationship, Thou art my God. To be able to stand secure and know that trust, you must have that personal relationship. You must know that He is your God. Just as David, that one that never fails, is the one that he is leaning upon, the one that he's relying upon. He's saying, Thou art my God. We can have a sure, fast trust. He was a child of God, a child of the King, as we sang this morning. Well, if we're here today as believers, we can make that same statement. I trusted in thee, O Lord, because thou art my God. It's personal. And God is still God. You know, regardless of who believes in him or who doesn't, God is still God. He never changes. It's just we get to have that privilege now of saying, Thou art my God. And He always will be God. But we belong to Him. And I pray that you can say that. But then he says, My times are in thy hand. So these are all statements of faith. I have trusted thee. Thou art my God. My times are in thy hand. God reigns supreme over all. He is in control of everything. And, really, all people's times are in the hand of the Lord. It's just some are in their sin blindedness, in their ignorance, they don't realize it. But God controls everything. It's another passage says that God controls the hearts of kings as does the waters of the river flow. That's how easily he can turn the hearts of kings and men. It's just as easy as a river flows. We've all seen a river flowing along. How easily it can flow over a rock or under or around a tree or what. It's just easily. God in his sovereign state, he controls all. My times are in thy hand. So he realizes who is the ultimate one in control. And what he allows to happen is all in accordance to his will and his way. Whether we are maybe get comfortable in our own ways, so to speak, sometimes. God is the one that controls all. God is the one that our way should be looking to his way, his will. My times are in thy hand. If we're looking to him, if we're in boldness of faith, making that statement, we should be looking for his plan and his purpose and living according to such. Now, we can all have times of weakness. We can all have times of trial, and David felt that in his life too, and we'll read that a little bit later on. But what God allows to happen is all in according to his will. And we just need to, by faith, accept that and know that my times are in his hands. No matter what comes my way, as long as I am right here, my times are in his hands. And actually evermore shall be. One day, like we said earlier this morning, he will return and bring us home. But he doesn't leave us alone to our own selves and our own wants and desires. So as a child of God, our time is in his hands. And that goes back to that trust that we see mentioned in verse 14. But then we see God, because he is our God, because he is in control, because we are in his hands, he provides deliverance. He says, deliver me from the hand of mine enemies and from them that persecute me. Deliver me. Because he is the great God. He can provide that way for us. He can deliver, just as he delivered David, just as he delivered Paul, just as he delivered so many accounts and all the saints of old. He delivers his people now. And he'll deliver his people through all their journey in life. And so we want to look at our time in the hands of the Lord. And we want to look at an account where in 2 Chronicles chapter 16, if you turn over there, that Asa actually fails in realizing this in this account. But let us focus on the fact that God is in control as we live day by day. Whether we're at work, school, church, whether we're with family, whether it's good times or bad times or hardships or blessings, our times are in the hands of the Lord. And we'll read in this account that Asa in this hard time failed in realizing that. 2 Chronicles chapter 16 in verse 1. In the 36th year of the reign of Asa, Baasha king of Israel came up against Judah, and built Ramah to the intent that he might let none go out or come in to Asa king of Judah. Then Asa brought out silver and gold out of the treasures of the house of the Lord and of the king's house, and sent to Ben-hadad, king of Syria, that dwelt at Damascus, saying, There is a league between me and thee. So there was between my father and thy father. Behold, I have sent thee silver and gold. Go break thy league with Baasha, king of Israel, that he might depart from me. And Ben-hadad hearkened unto King Asa, and sent the captains of the armies against the cities of Israel, and they smote Ajon and Dan and Abel-maim and all the store cities of Naphtali. And it came to pass when Baasha heard it, that he left off building of Ramah, and let his work cease. Then Asa the king took all Judah, and they carried away the stones of Ramah, and the timber thereof, wherewith Baasha was building, and he built therewith Geba and Mizpah. And at that time Hananiah the seer came to Asa king of Judah, and said unto him, Because thou hast relied on the king of Syria, and not relied on the Lord thy God, therefore is the host of the king of Syria escaped out of thine hand. Were not the Ethiopians and the Lubans a huge host, with very many chariots and horsemen? Yet because thou didst rely on the Lord, he delivered them into thine hand. Asa faced a great challenge here. The king was in a position where this Baasha was building Ramah to the intent that none could go in or out to Judah. Asa was in a state of helplessness, according to, in and of himself, helpless. He couldn't do something about this of his own accord, of his own self. He was going to have to rely on an outside source for help. Outside source to help deliver Judah. They couldn't do it on their own. So that wasn't his downfall, though. Having to rely on someone else was not his demise or his downfall. Asa didn't do what David did. David, in those statements of, I trusted in the Lord. The Lord is my God. My times are in his hand. No, Asa instead sought out an earthly help. He took of the treasures of the house of the Lord and his house, and he made a deal with Ben-hadad. And basically, he sought out this help of the king of Syria. And like I say, what's worse is he took from the treasuries of the house of the Lord to basically bribe the king, and in doing so created an alliance that he never should have created. He should have sought the Lord. He should have gone to him in prayer and supplication. God was there the whole time. My times are in thy hand. There's never a time that God is not there. God had not forsaken Asa here. Asa had forsaken God. He looked not unto the Lord. He looked unto his own thoughts. He followed his own solution. He saw, okay, here's how I get out of this. Let me go bribe this king of Syria. Let me take this. Well, we'll take a little bit from the king's houses. We'll take from the house of the Lord. And we'll solve this problem here. And in doing so, he made now an alliance, a friend of Ben-hadad, the king of Syria. There was a divide between Judah and Syria, and Asa opened that up in this. Welcomed an alliance that he shouldn't have. And you know, this passage, and here we're talking about, you know, this is very this is a very big thing, and Asa had, you know, in adversity here that probably none of us have ever felt something to this extent. But you know, it made me think, and in my life, and we all need this, is How many times has something come up and I immediately thought, okay, what do I got to do to solve this? Or, okay, let me make a plan. If I can make this work out, then maybe this will work. When really that first reaction should be to bow my head and say, Lord, help me. Lord, I trust in thee. Lord, my times are in your hand. Oh, Asa did wrong here by trusting in the arm of flesh. He had God to lean on. He had that ability to go to the Lord for deliverance. He had in times past. Hannah tells him that, and we'll get into that. But like I said, we may not be faced with such a drastic circumstance as this. But no matter what we're faced with in life, let us caution, let us take these accounts that God has given us as examples, as things that we look to say, okay, let us not look elsewhere. Let us not look at myself for the solution. Let us not look at mankind for solution. Not that he can't use our fellow man to help us. You know, if God had wanted, if Asa had went to the Lord, and God had wanted Behenadad to deliver Asa out of that, the Lord could have allowed that if that's what he wanted to happen. But Asa skipped that step. He went right to thinking, okay, I'll make this alliance. I'll get out of this problem that I'm facing. I'll get out of this. We must just trust in God. Our times are in his hand. So often when we fail, it's because we fail to see that. We seek to figure it out ourselves. So, what does that really mean? My times are in thy hand. It means that our times are not in our hands. If it's in the hand of the Lord, that means it's not in our hands. It's not up to us. The continuance of life and all that happens depends not upon ourselves. Think about all that's transpired in our life. Could we have foretold or seen what would have become? I mean, we look back at times we went through, the course of life that God had us on, times of his deliverance. We couldn't go back. I mean, we can look at it now, but at that time, we may not know the end, but God already did. God knew the end. So why do we try to rely on our own abilities? God's the one over all. God is in the past, he's in the present, he's in the future. I like to say that God's the only one that can walk beside us and in front of us all at the same time. He knows exactly what we're getting ready to go to. And so, as Asa faced a great adversary, faced a great hardship, he failed to look to the Lord. It's one of those that he had been there before. He had been there before. Hananiah tells him that. He says, were not the Ethiopians and the Lubans a huge host? But the Lord led you out of that one. Look in 2 Peter chapter 1. And we'll be back at 2 Chronicles if you want to leave a marker there. Second Peter chapter 1 and verse 2. Grace and peace be multiplied unto you through the knowledge of God and of Jesus our Lord, according as his divine power hath given unto us all things that pertain unto life and godliness, through the knowledge of him that hath called us to glory and virtue. According to his divine power, he has called us. He has given us knowledge. It says he gives us all things that pertain to life and godliness. We must just seek him in it, though. That little three-letter word is so powerful. All, the impact of that word, all. He gives us all things we need to sustain our lives, both physical and spiritually. He provides for us in our daily needs. What we need to live physically in this life, the sustenance of this old mortal body. But he also provides and gives to us all things that we need spiritually. He gave us the lights, called us out of darkness, made us his own, gave us his precious promises. He guides our steps. He gives us that guidance. Lights the pathway before us. That's, I'm sure we've all been hiking or out on the trails and David talks about that of where he prays for the plain path. Well, God will show us the plain path. He'll show us the way. As you're out hiking, that trail that is made clear, that pathway that has been trodden, it's easy to see, is it not? I mean, it's worn down, it's dirt, you can follow it. You can see it. When you get off that trail and get out into the thicket and the briars, it gets a little harder to see where you're going. God gives us what we need. He guides our steps. He lights the pathway before us. He delivers us in our times of need. As we looked at his precious promises this morning, he's promised us that eternal home and glory that he has prepared. Well, I'd say that's the definition of all things. His divine power. What a wonderful thing. By his divine power. And that's what Hananiah tells Asa back in verse 8 of 2 Chronicles 16. Were not the Ethiopians and the Lubans a huge host, with very many chariots and horsemen? Yet because thou didst rely on the Lord, he delivered them into thine hand. And that account is actually just back in chapter 14. Turn back a couple pages in 2 Chronicles. In chapter 14, verse 8. And Asa had an army of men that bare targets and spears, out of Judah 300,000, and out of Benjamin that bare shields and drew bows 280,000. All these were mighty men of valor. But there came out against them from Zerah the Ethiopian with an host of 1,300 chariots, and came unto Marishal. And when Asa went out against him, and they set the battle in array in the valley of Zephathah at Marishal, and Asa cried unto the Lord his God, and said, Lord, it is nothing with thee to help, whether with many or with them that have no power. Help us, O Lord our God, for we rest on thee, and in thy name we go against this multitude. O Lord, thou art our God. Let not man prevail against thee. So the Lord smote the Ethiopians before Asa and before Judah, and the Ethiopians fled. Oh, the Ethiopians had 1,000,000. Basically a million men of war. Outnumbered Asa and the army 2-1. The odds were insurmountable, humanly speaking. But Asa looked to God and said, it is nothing with thee to help. Asa said, in that moment, my times are in thy hand. It's God, you're all powerful, you're so sovereign, this is nothing, whether they have a great number or whether they have a few. What is it to thee? And that's the proper attitude. He said, Lord, you're over all, you're sovereign, you're in control. No man can prevail against thee. We go forth in the name of the Lord. And the Lord did just that. He delivered them. And that's what Hananiah is talking about here in chapter 16. When Hananiah came to Asa there in verses 7 and 8, and he said, because thou hast relied on the king of Syria and relied not, and not relied on the Lord thy God, therefore is the host of the king of Syria escaped out of thine hand. Were not the Ethiopians and those so much more? You relied on the Lord in your time of need then. Why did you not continue to do so? See that, how David worded that in Psalms. It says, my times. Plural, my times. That's all time. That's our entire amount of time. God's not just there once, and then, well, he may be back for us again, if he can be. No, he's there in all our times. My times, plural, are in his hands. Asa failed to see that in this moment. Asa looked to help of mankind. In verse 9, he said, for the eyes of the Lord run to and fro throughout the whole earth to show himself strong in the behalf of them whose heart is perfect toward him. Herein thou hast done foolishly. Therefore from henceforth thou shalt have wars. Oh, he said, herein thou hast done foolishly. Oh, Asa, thou hast failed in this. After all that God has done for you, after all that God has provided, how he delivered you out of the hands of your enemies. What do? You go and seek deliverance from mankind. You go and seek deliverance from the king of Syria. To trust in man is to trust a broken reed, it says in Isaiah. I wrote it down here. Isaiah 36:6 says, lo, thou trustest in the staff of this broken reed on Egypt, whereon if a man lean, it will go into his hand and pierce it. So is Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to all that trust in him. To lean on mankind is to just trust in a broken reed. It's not going to hold you up. It's not going to be the support. That is to foolishly trust in something that did not have the strength to support it. And that's what Asa did. He looked to another earthly king. He looked to another earthly source in his time of need. He made an alliance that he shouldn't have made, which only led to more grief and heartache and sorrow. Oh, let us be as David. Let us trust. Turn back to Psalms 31. Let us trust in the Lord. Psalm 31, verse 14. But I trusted in thee, O Lord. I said, thou art my God. My times are in thy hand. Deliver me from the hand of mine enemies and from them that persecute me. Oh, let us focus that we have that personal relationship with God. We have the God Almighty on our side because he has saved us. He has made us a child of his. He has promised to care for us. And we can say, thou art my God. In thee I put my trust. Thou wilt deliver me. You know, if we look down at the last part of chapter 31, David even shows that, if you look in verse 21, blessed be the Lord, for he has showed me his marvelous kindness in a strong city. For I said in my haste, I am cut off from before thine eyes. Nevertheless, thou heardest the voice of my supplications when I cried unto thee. O love the Lord, all ye his saints, for the Lord preserveth the faithful, and plentifully rewardeth the proud doer. Be of good courage, and he shall strengthen your heart, all ye that hope in the Lord. Oh, even David says here, For in my haste. In my haste, I might have been facing something in the moment, and in my haste, I might have said, how do I get through this? I might have said, thine eyes are cut off from before me. Nevertheless, thou heardest the voice of my supplication. Nevertheless, as a child of God, we can cry out to him, my times are in thine hand. You are my God. I trust in thee. Yeah, we're human. We can falter. We can have times of doubt creep in to where we look to the wrong place. But we should turn unto God. We should realize the folly in our way when we do that, when we look to self or we look to others. Blessed be the Lord, for he has showed me his marvelous kindness. Has not the Lord showed us his marvelous kindness? If you're here today and are saved, then the Lord showed you his marvelous kindness. He is our God. Our times are in his hands. And even in a time of haste where we think maybe, it's too much, it's stacked against us, let us remember, the Lord's still there. Nevertheless, he heard our supplication. Be of good courage, and he shall strengthen your heart, all ye that hope in the Lord. May God bless his word.
So I'll stand as Brother Jackie and Brother Vaughn